Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. I ran a poll last week on my podcast host, Spotify, and I asked the question, will UFO disclosure happen in 2023? 70.8% or 51 people said no, and 29.2% or 21 people said yes. So the no's have completely pummeled the yes. And I pretty much agree with that. I think that's the case. I think that's pretty much. I don't feel very confident that there's going to be a UFO disclosure in 2023. I just unless it's a force thing, unless something happens with the extraterrestrials themselves and they pull some stunt where it causes government officials across the world to come out and say, yeah, we've been looking at this privately. We didn't want to say anything and scare you, but as you can see, they're here now. There's nothing we can do anymore. We can't keep it from you. Maybe that way, but I agree with this because I just don't see anybody stepping forward and stating anything publicly about this year. I mean, I think we're gonna get this slow drip of information. We'll get pictures from and some video that's leaked to people like Jeremy Corbell. We'll keep getting stuff like that, and that's probably about it. I think it's going to continue. I feel very negative right now. I feel very pessimistic about finally getting to the bottom of this because I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes, but whatever it is, it's not good, and it's so embedded, and it's just never. It just feels like it's never going to come out unless the aliens do something to make the world realize that there's something happening, that they are here, because they are here. There's most certainly an extraterrestrial presence here. Anyway, sometimes I get messages from people who ask me, how come if these things are traveling from incredible distances through space to come to Earth, how come they still crash when they get here? Well, for one thing, we don't know a lot of these crash retrievals that have occurred over the years. There's been well over 100 that have been reported. Researchers like the late Leonard Stringfield had amassed well over 100 different alleged UFO crash incidents, and he over the years that he was alive, and whether they're true or not, all of them, I don't know, but some of them I would imagine have to be true. I'm sure, for one thing, I believe Roswell most certainly happened, and I believe that there's other cases that have happened too. Like the Aztec case seems like it's something that happened. There was the Kingman, Arizona case from the early 50s. That seems like it's a strong possibility. There's a lot of different cases. But people wonder, well, how if they're able to travel here from such a great distance, how come they sometimes crash? Well, I just think it's just the way things are. I don't think it matters how technologically advanced that you are. It's just going to be one of those things that's happened. I mean, even the most advanced technology that human beings come up with, whether it's trains or planes. I mean, there's all kinds of crashes throughout the decades. It doesn't matter. Cars, trains, planes, everything crashes. No matter what the technology is, it's going to crash. Even the most technologically advanced craft that we come up with, there's always some sort of disaster. I mean, you look in the past, the Titanic in 1912, there was over 1,500 people killed. A British passenger ocean liner hits an iceberg, and it was named the Unsinkable, and guess what? It sunk. And then, of course, the Hindenburg in 1937, this German passenger airship that used hydrogen to fly around, it crashed in Lakehurst, New Jersey, and there was 35 people who were killed in that incident. There was different space shuttle incidents that have happened. In 1986, the Challenger blew up shortly after taking off, and there was 7 astronauts on board were killed. In 2003, there was Challenger, the space shuttle was that one disintegrated after it re-entered the atmosphere, and 7 astronauts were killed there. So it doesn't matter how technologically advanced human beings make something; these things, accidents happen, crashes happen. And I think that's the same thing with these extraterrestrial visitors. I think that it doesn't matter. If they build something, it's going to come down. It's going to crash. It doesn't matter. And I think that's just the bottom line. I mean, there could be other times where they maybe some militaries of the world sometimes might get lucky and shoot one of them down. There's been cases like that. There was a case in Peru, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it's alleged that according to one guy, that there was a saucer that was shot down. I mean, maybe that happens sometimes, but that's different. That's forced. I mean, that's, somebody shooting it down. But I think that it's just it doesn't matter how advanced something is. I mean, things go wrong sometimes, and it's just the way things are. And I think that's how it is with these things. That when they crash, I think they most likely sometimes it's because they're just prone. Anything that's technology, any kind of technology is prone to fail at some point, whether it's by error of the operator or maybe computer error or whatever. But obviously, I think it's happening with these aliens. Now, there is something else that might be going on, and I want to get into that. And I guess that's the main. Now, this is something I'm not sure. I'm not saying I believe this, but I guess it is something you need to consider. In addition to just that they crash sometimes. I mean, anything could crash, right? I mean, for instance, just before I move on here, I just want to bring up Roswell. I mean, it's been alleged that there was a lightning storm, according to even one of the witnesses, Mac Brazel, a rancher, the night before he discovered that wreckage, some of the wreckage from this craft that was recovered near Roswell in 1947. The night before, there was a terrific lightning storm, and at the next day, that's when Mac Brazel was on this ranch, and he saw that this wreckage strewn over this large area. So some people believe that a lightning bolt struck this crash that caused the crash in Roswell in 1947, and maybe that's just something that's out of the control of an extraterrestrial race that's here, even regardless of how technologically advanced they are. If something gets struck by lightning, there's nothing you can do about that. And again, anything could happen. It could be something wrong with the mechanical structure of the craft. Who knows? Anything could happen. But I just think it's the same for them as it is for us. It doesn't seem that no matter what we make, I mean, nothing is infallible. Everything could come down. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I think that's the way it is with them. However, there is another possibility here. And that's what I want to talk about right now. This is what I want to... Now, the other possibility is it's far-fetched, and I'm not sure I believe it, but I believe it's something that should be considered. And I think it's basically... What if what's happening here, it's almost like a Trojan Horse kind of situation? Now, this is something that people talk about sometimes, but I want to get into this and let's really think about this. Of course, everyone knows the story of the Trojan Horse and all that, and I'm not going to get into that, but that's what it could be. That's what could be happening here. I mean, if you're an extraterrestrial race and you want to infiltrate humankind, right? And you want to make sure that the human race doesn't know what you're up to. What are you going to have to do? You're going to have to actually get into the part of. You're going to have to actually access first the people within the human race who are basically the gatekeepers, the people who would be. If there's a crash, put it this way, if there's a crash of a UFO, there's going to be certain people within governments of the world, right? Different governments of the world that are going to show up and they're going to look at this and they're going to decide on whether they need to tell the public or not, right? So if you're an alien race, you're going to know this. I mean, I believe this. These extraterrestrials that are here, I mean, I just don't think people really appreciate how intelligent they are. And that's one of the problems that we have with a lot of people seem to have this problem, especially like debunkers and scoffers and deniers, the people that just aren't ready to accept this. They're not ever, they pretty much dismiss all the really good evidence, all the testimony from people who have experienced these things, seen the beings, been abducted by the beings, seen the craft. They can't accept what their problem is they can't to them they think that we're smart. There's no way that anything could be smarter than we are. I mean, we're as smart as you could possibly get, right? But see, that's the problem. See, that's where people can't, and even regular people, people who study this subject, people who are interested, and even myself, I don't think about this enough sometimes. We think of these things in human terms and how we would do things but we're not. That's the wrong way of looking at this, because I think these things are so much more intelligent than we are that. I mean, they're running rings around us, intellectually, mentally, every which way that you could imagine. When it comes to intelligence, they're just ahead of us in every department, and we have trouble accepting that. We have trouble realizing this or understanding it. For instance, it's almost like as a human being, we come up with all different kinds of clever things all the time. Things that are clever from our point of view, that the animals that we deal with on this world, or they would never think of this. Like, for instance, just a simple thing like a mouse trap. Okay, we come up, mice invade your house and you want to get rid of them, so they come up, somebody designs a mouse trap. You put a little piece of cheese on there, and the mouse gets caught, and that's it, and you throw it out. Now, a mouse would never think of that. A dog will never think of that. No animal in the world's ever going to come up with something like that. But human beings, we're smart enough, we're clever enough to come up with things like this. But imagine if you're on another level of intelligence. And I think that's what these alien beings, they're on a different kind of level of intelligence. So if they wanted to, say, infiltrate the human race somehow, they want to make, obviously, let's look at the situation here. These beings are very secretive, right? For the most part, they don't want us to know what they're really up to. I mean, they erase memories from people. They make people forget. There's people who get abducted who experience lost time. So people just don't know. Some people don't even know they're getting abducted. Some people just go through life their whole lives, I believe, and they don't even understand. They never know ever that they've been dealing with extraterrestrials or have been abducted by extraterrestrials. I mean, yeah, of course, every now and then they show up and they make somebody will see a saucer, maybe a picture will be taken, maybe some video will be taken, maybe some film is taken of them. But it's very rare and it's hard to get really good evidence of them, because they're just always like who knows how many steps ahead of us they really are in the intelligence department. I think they're way, way ahead of us, beyond anything that we can even imagine. And I think that's how, when you look at what's going on here, you have to really think about what's going on. You have to really think outside of the box. And if you're coming here, you want to keep secret what you're about to do once you get here, or maybe who knows how long they've been here, or how many different kinds. It seems like there's a bunch of different kinds based on different reports from different people. Who knows really what's going on, but just say in the 40s, when they start showing up in force, where it really started becoming clear that there's something going on here, and although there were reports that we find out later on that have been going on for centuries before, but now all of a sudden everyone they're here, and it's almost like a show of force. I mean, there's for instance the first sighting from Kenneth Arnold, the first major UFO flying saucer sighting, when Kenneth Arnold in June of 1947 saw 9 saucers, 9 objects flying over Mount Rainier in Washington State. It's like there were 9 together, like they're flying in force. It's like they're basically letting us know that they're here. They didn't care if we saw them. No, nobody was really noticing these things before, and all of a sudden in 47 it just exploded. Although there was stuff that was going on before that. But what if the whole idea was, okay, it's almost like you go fishing. What like, say the Roswell crash, for instance. Let's take the Roswell crash, and we'll pretend that this was actually not just a regular. We'll pretend that it wasn't caused by lightning. Let's say it was all staged by the aliens. And why would they do that? It's almost like fishing. Like if you go out fishing, you need bait on the hook to catch that fish. You need to put something on the hook, or it's going to be really difficult. The only way you're going to catch something is if by pure chance. If you don't have some bait on there, you need to throw a piece of corn or a worm or whatever on that hook to catch that fish. And I think that's what the aliens did in a way, possibly. This is all speculation, and I don't know if this. I mean, this is a possibility. That's all I'm saying. So what if that whole thing was staged by the aliens? I mean, yeah, there's dead alien bodies. They sacrifice some gray aliens, I guess. But really, when you think about it, some people, like some scientists today, like Gary Nolan, believes that these things are basically biological robots. So they're expendable, really. So what if? So the purpose behind the crash, the Roswell crash, could be to infiltrate the part of government where that would look at this and make a decision on whether to keep it secret or not. That's the whole purpose of these crashes. What if that's the purpose behind crashes? What if they're all staged, and the reason being is because these aliens understand that if and here's the funny thing, Rod. There's rarely these crashes happen in residential areas. The closest thing that there was the 1960s Pennsylvania incident. That's about it. But was that a UFO crash, or was that something from Russia? I mean, nobody really knows, but most of these crashes seem to happen in isolated areas, deserts, right? In the mountains somewhere. It's something you would think if there were over 100 crashes, why didn't anything ever just come right down in the middle of a metropolitan city already? So it's funny that these things happen like in isolated areas for the most part. The Kingman incident, from the early 50s that I talked about before, the Aztec UFO crash from 1948. There's all these different crashes that happen, but a lot of them seem to happen in more isolated areas, not really close, not too close to towns. Some of them do, right? Apparently, but if they were to happen. Like if there's something that come down right in the middle of New York City, how come that never happened? How come nothing ever came down in the middle of Dallas or anywhere, any big city, right in the smack middle in it? Because then if they did, everyone would know it. There would it'd be very difficult to cover something like that up. So again, these things, for the most part, these crashes seem to happen in places where there's not a lot of people hanging about. What if the Roswell crash, for instance, was basically a Trojan horse? It really wasn't lightning that caused the saucer to crash or some malfunction in the saucer. It was actually a Trojan horse. It was like the aliens realized, they understood, okay, this is where it looks like they're keeping their atomic bombs in 1947. So we're going to crash a saucer here. And who cares about the biological robots in there, the grays that they threw in there, for good measure to make it look authentic. They understand that it doesn't matter who finds this craft initially. At some point, it's going to go to their higher ups, and then we're going to get to they're going to figure out. Then this way, we can figure out, who's in charge, what's going on, what are these people up to. We could infiltrate them this way. I mean, who knows? I mean, there could be something inside the remnants of the crashed flying saucer that could control somebody. They could have technology that you just wouldn't recognize. Still, even to this day, these extraterrestrials could possess technology that we would think is nothing. For instance, just a piece of a crashed saucer. Somebody could look at that and think, oh, this is just a remnant from this saucer that just crashed. When really, there's some sort of technology in there that maybe could control somebody. See, that's where I'm getting at with this. Like somehow, okay, let's look at this. Isn't it interesting? At first, the United States Army Air Forces was told the truth. They said, hey, yeah, we captured a flying saucer near Roswell. We have one. And then a few hours later, oh, no, it was just a weather balloon, right? And then the whole story went away. And then over 30 years later, Jesse Marcel Sr., the top intelligence guy out at Roswell at that time, comes forward and states publicly that, that was something not from this world, but, we were told it was a cover-up. It was most certainly not from this world. He said he was familiar with all sorts of aircraft, and he knew that this had nothing to do with any kind of aircraft or balloon he ever saw before or since that. And as far as he was concerned, it could not have been of this earth. But it was covered up really quickly when at first they were going to tell the truth, apparently. Now, I know there's other people who will say, well, there was other crashes that happened before that. Well, again, something similar to what I'm talking about here could have happened with those too. So I'm just using Roswell as an example. So basically, there could have been what these aliens did. Basically, it's almost like they went fishing. What's the bait? The bait is a crash saucer with some alien beings thrown in there. We need to infiltrate the authority that's in charge here in this area of this planet right now, and the way to do that is we need to go fishing. So we'll use this as bait. This saucer with the beings inside. And then once they recover this, once they start picking these pieces up, we're going to understand, we're going to figure out who's in charge, and then we're going to control them. And maybe that somehow through that technology, that crash technology, or maybe through one of those dead alien bodies, or maybe the alleged live one that was still standing there, somehow the idea was put into somebody's head, hey, we got to keep this secret from everybody. And that's why it's been secret all these years, and that's why these crashes happen over and over again, possibly, because every now and then the aliens need to reinforce this. Hey, we need to keep this secret. We need to keep this secret, right? And somehow that message is conveyed to the top of the food chain in the political system, and it doesn't. Not everyone needs to be affected by this. You only need a few people, really. I mean, a president, for instance, might know. Presidents actually might know. They might be briefed on the alien presence, but they're told that, hey, we got to keep this secret because of this reason, that reason, this reason, that reason, and that reason, and this reason. And so they keep it secret. That's possible. And so any elected official is always told these things by certain people in this secret control group, which really is a product of the aliens themselves. The aliens could have established this secret control group. That's why this is still secret. Because again, to me, the beings themselves are very secretive, and they want to keep this secret. Obviously, if for instance, if there's a alien hybridization program ongoing, they don't want people to know what they're doing. You would think that governments of the world would want people to know, hey, this is what's going on, just in case. Why instead have all these years, right? All these years were, stigmatizing the whole thing. Instead, that's because the instructions that the aliens are somehow conveying to some people within the government structure, some part of it. Doesn't have to be the president, doesn't have to be top generals in the Pentagon, but it could be some people underneath them that are telling that are passing along this message, how important it is to keep this secret. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is true. I believe that the reason it's been kept secret for as long as it's been kept secret, I think the biggest reason right now, my mind changes on this. Sometimes I think it's because of the fear it might cause and the panic, but right now I believe it's no. You know what? I think it's because of the military implications. They're trying to reverse engineer this stuff. And that's probably what they are. They are trying to do that behind the scenes, right? And that could be the real reason. But again, that reason, if you're under the scenario that I'm putting out there, that possibility, the reason why it's being kept secret, they think they're reverse engineering this stuff, and maybe they're making some progress, but that's beside the point. The whole point was for the aliens to somehow infiltrate sections of governments of the world, most likely the United States. They probably recognize where the bigger governments are. They probably did have this. I would imagine that this is something that probably happened in China, in Russia, and all these other bigger countries, and they believe, they're under the belief that they need to keep this secret because there are some people that are telling them they got to keep this secret because the aliens are telling these other people. I know it sounds confusing. I don't know how else to put it, though. I think that it could be an entire Trojan, what this could be, it could be a Trojan horse scenario, basically. And basically the way to get into this, the way to infiltrate humankind, the way to basically control humankind from the inside out would be to do something like this, to have these phony crashes, and then somehow some technology that's part of these crashes somehow control some people who handle it or are in charge, and then they make it clear to other leaders, to their leaders, hey, we got to keep this secret because of this, and this. When really that's really not that important, but it scares everyone else around them. And so this is why we have what's going on now. I mean, it's continuing. Why this cover up is continuing. So I think that's a possibility. I know it sounds insane. It sounds insane to me. I'm not saying it's real. I'm just saying it's something to consider. It could be. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It does. I mean, the people who ask the question, they don't understand how these beings could come all the way from wherever, billions of light years away, somehow travel to Earth, and yet they come here, get all the way here, and then they crash. Well, again, it could be as simple as, what we see in our own technology. It doesn't matter how advanced it is, things crash. Those space shuttles, they crash. It doesn't matter. It's just the way things are. And it's just, no matter, you can't build something that's completely impervious to mistakes. It's impossible. And that's probably the reason. But again, maybe it's not. Maybe the reason is because they stage these crashes. Okay, let's lay this out in a little bit more detail. Okay, say the aliens decide, okay, we need to infiltrate human society. We need to infiltrate it from the top, but we have to do it from the inside out. So the only way to do that, we need to crash a spaceship. Maybe they've done this before in other worlds. Who knows? So they decide, okay, we're going to crash it near this little town, Roswell, where they seem to be holding these atomic bombs. They have the atomic bombs here. This is where they... so we're going to crash it near there, and we're going to have all these little devices and technology that they're not going to be aware of, because these people just ain't that advanced. They're never going to know what's going on, because they're nowhere near as intelligent as we are, and they're not nearly as technologically advanced as we are. I mean, we're like a million years ahead of them. So we'll just put these little controlling devices inside there. So once the people who are in charge get a handle of this stuff, the bodies and or the wreckage or the saucer, the saucer piece, the bigger saucer piece, once they get it in their hands, then that's when the technology that they have goes to work. Then from a distance, or who knows, could be remote, it could be initiated by remote control, it could be just automatic, who knows how it operates, right? But it could take control of the people who are looking at it, studying it, the people who are given permission to look at this and try to consider what it all means. Those people are basically end up getting controlled somehow by these extraterrestrials. It was all part of the plan. And once they're under their control somehow via this technology that's recovered in a crash, then those people pass on whatever they're being told to do to their superiors. You don't necessarily have to control the president or the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You just need to get control of a certain group, and once you have that control, then you could they'll do what you tell them to do, because you're giving them all these concerns that the aliens are telling you to do, even though you might not even know you're doing it. So I think that's possible. I'm not saying it's what's really happened, but it could be. It wouldn't surprise. We'll put it this way: nothing would surprise me when it comes to this topic. I think these things are incredibly advanced and way more intelligent than we are, than we can even imagine. So yeah, I think anything's possible. I mean, who knows? It could be. That it could be just like I said. It could be that every now and then they have to do it every now and then. Maybe any and all these crashes could be staged. Just to get in somehow, or maybe this is a way that they pass off information. Maybe after time goes by, maybe there's insiders. Maybe there are hybrids now somehow that have worked their way into the system too. Who knows what's going on? I guess the bottom line is this. I think these aliens are capable of things that we just could never even dream of. I mean, we're not smart enough. I know it's hard for some people to believe that. It is. It's hard for me to believe it. But when you think about things, you think about how much the intelligence that we have over everything else on this, that we know is on this planet, right? It seems like we have it. I mean, they can't. There's no monkeys out in the jungle coming up with computers or cell phones. There's no cats developing microphone and headphone technology. I mean, it's just impossible. We're just so far ahead of them that it's insane. But what if they're so far ahead of us the same way we're so far ahead of them? It's hard to imagine. How much smarter could you be? Well, obviously, these beings are a lot smarter, and they could be doing things. When you really think about it, they could be capable of what I just laid out. It's very possible that they were able. That is what there is a purpose behind the crashes. That it's not just crashes, it's more than crashes. Is that this is a way to infiltrate us somehow? How exactly? This is just It could be a different way. It could be what they're doing. These crashes could be a way to infiltrate our human society and somehow, and it's totally different than what I'm explaining here right now. What I'm putting out there. It could be something completely different. But it could be, though. It could be some sort of a Trojan horse. So this material gets brought. There's certain scientists that look. This material gets looked at and examined and studied by certain scientists, and actually they're reverse engineering it at the same time. There's some cases where some witnesses claim to have seen aliens actually working alongside human beings. Now, if that's true, you have to wonder, okay, now some people will say, yeah, well, maybe our government made a secret deal with the aliens and that's what's going on. Well, what if that's not what's going on? What if the aliens are just basically in control behind the scenes, right? Somehow they basically, they got into our system via these crashes and now they're just in control behind the scenes, pulling all the strings. I mean, not with regard to our elected officials or anything like that, but people within the secret control group within the Pentagon, the weapons manufacturers, some departments within those organizations. What if that's what's happening? So I mean, there's different stories you hear where somebody will say they saw an alien working with people, and then people, the first idea is, well, we must have made an agreement with them. We must have made somewhere in the past, we must have made some sort of an agreement with the aliens. That doesn't make sense to me, really, when you think about it. Really, what it tells me is that they've infiltrated this portion of the government, and maybe that's why this is secret, because the aliens are causing it to be secret. They're forcing it to be secret because they've infiltrated sections of our government, the sections of the government that is in charge of reverse engineering and all that kind of stuff. And here's another part of this is that, yeah, there could be reverse engineering going on, and people think they're getting somewhere, but really that's just for show. Like there are some people that are scientists that are brought in secretly and they're told, hey, you need to study this. We're trying to reverse engineer this. But that's really not going anywhere. It's just to make it look like that's the reason behind the crash recoveries. Well, of course, we're keeping it secret because we're reverse engineering it. So they actually have some people who aren't under alien control that are actually under the belief that the reason behind all this is to reverse engineer. But really, that's not the case. That's just a front for what's really going on. What's really going on behind the scenes is that the aliens are in control, and the reason that they are in control is because they need to keep their presence secret from the public at large. That's what I think is possible. Now, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's possible. I mean, I think you got to think outside the box when it comes to this, because it's, again, we're over 75 years now. We're in year 76 of the cover-up since 1947, at least. And it's still covered. I mean, that's a lifetime. That's an entire lifetime of a person, basically, 75, 76 years. And we're still involved. It's still going on. And it doesn't seem like it's coming to an end anytime soon. I mean, yeah, we get some snacks here and there, right? But we just don't get the main enchilada, the big enchilada. We don't get it. We're not getting it. They're keeping it secret. And I think, again, the aliens themselves, they're secretive. Whatever they're doing, they don't want you to know. And when they take you in the middle of the night, people who are abductees, right? When they get taken in the middle of the night or in broad daylight, they're made to forget most of the time. Some people have little memories here and there. They remember partial events of the abduction, partial aspects of the abductions. But for the most part, most of them don't remember anything. And they have to get hypnotized. They're trying to regain those memories. They don't want you to know what's going on here. And again, then you have the useful idiots out there, the debunkers out there who don't consider any of the evidence at all. None of the real good evidence. They don't. And there's a lot of the scientific community. They're not really. They've been useless when it comes to this. They don't. Again, it's like we're under control. Because again, I know for a fact that there's something here. I've encountered one of the beings and I've seen one of the craft. So I know that there's something here. And I know that they have power that's beyond anything that we have. I mean, when I think about The ship that I saw right there in front of me, right, 2.5 stories off the ground back in 1994. We don't have anything like that. We don't. We just don't. Right. And the being that I encountered in the late 70s was, I mean, this thing was not human. There's no question in my mind that there's something here, and all these people can't be lying, right? So you have to wonder, maybe that's the reason for this whole cover-up, is because the aliens are covering it up behind the scenes, and there's a lot of different people who are like, again, they're controlling certain people behind the scenes like puppets, and maybe by this point there's actually some hybrids in there too, somehow infiltrated the system as time went on. I'm sure of it. There must be. I mean, who knows? Well, I'm not sure of it. I'm not saying that. I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of any of it. I just know that I put it this way. I'm not sure of what's going on exactly. But again, this is just a possibility that I'm laying out there. I know this is that there's a presence here that's not human, that's up to something. Because again, I saw the craft and I encountered one of the beings, so I know. All right. So I know I don't even need to read any of the research. Right? I already know. I'm there because once you see it and you know, then you're living in a different world. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the world is basically in the dark on this for the most part, and even people who do know, I'm in the dark. I don't know what they're up to. And I don't understand. I mean, again, the cover-up, the reason that this is still covered up could be a result of the aliens infiltrating different governments of the world via phony crashes, staged crashes, and that somehow technology involved in those crashes somehow grabs the intelligence, takes control of certain people, and then from there it just branches out, and all governments of the world feel it's very imperative that we keep this from the people, or who knows what's going to happen. You know, they're being forced to do it somehow, and I think it's possible. Anyway, it's just something to consider.